So we'll go ahead and in order. Public meeting, any public comment, so we're going to continue on from there. So we'll do some reintroductions of council members. Did we already do that? I missed that part?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
We waited for you.
Okay, we do that, get everybody's name, kind of share out, make it very helpful for us. So I'll start with Mr. J, board member. Glad to be back in action with everybody, and
Okay, I'm Amanda O'Neill, and I'm in Middletown. Do I need to say? Reach good? I have 2 elementary school age kids.
And I'm Lauren Stanchak. I'm the Oakdale feeder pattern, and I have a middle schooler at TJ Middle and an elementary student at Spring Ridge Elementary.
yeah, we're paid too.
Okay.
I'm Celeste McNeish, in Walkersville. I have a high school 9th grader and a middle school 7th grader in Walkersville schools.
My name is John Denny. I've got a junior at Frederick High School and a 8th grader at West Frederick. I'm sorry I couldn't be here for the first 2 meetings in June. My family and I were on vacation out of town, and in October I was on a business trip. So I'm glad to be here now and look forward to helping out as I can.
Congrats to your son this evening.
Excuse me?
Congrats to your son this evening.
Daughters.
Daughters, okay.
Yes,
sorry.
thank you.
I'm Lindsay Gonzalez. I'm from New Windsor, and my daughter goes to Liberty Elementary, and then my son is in the Expressions program at Governor DJ Middle.
Lisa Corrigan, I have elementary, middle, and high school girls in the Leonore feeder pattern.
Good evening, I'm Mike Mark, I'm the Deputy Superintendent and serve as the liaison to the board. I have a six-year-old, almost 8-year-old at Myersville Elementary.
Thank you all for doing that. We're going to jump right into it and look at our, we're kind of under quorum right now, so we can do our minutes, so we don't have to add these minutes. So our next meeting, hopefully we can get quorum at that meeting. The quorum is 8, so we have the 16th of June, October 10th, and today for the minutes. I'm hoping actually that we can revisit quorum in the bylaws. We have quorum, revisit quorum in the bylaws, so we can kind of make sure we can pass more minutes. So our first thing was look at who we are and what we do statements from the affairs. Do we have anything, Marco, about the affairs on the statement, the 2 things about?
So
that, okay.
with that, and the way it's laid out here, we can play with the dimensions of the document. The goal here was to have something that would first identify with CAC as a logo, but 2, that you could take out to different community functions and hand out as you're soliciting information. We already heard that the ear needs some work, but we've also heard that everything else is pretty good.
Is everybody cool with the color scheme? I thought it was a little dark.
I like that it looks kind of like highlighted.
It's really easy to read.
Yes.
I like it because it's bold.
Yeah.
It is eye-catching, yeah.
Okay.
I like it.
But what's it going on, and what format will this be produced in?
So we discussed that it would be like something basically for our page on the website, and also like on the 2-3 handout, kind of like who we are. Most places have a small logo, like a sub logo, saying who they are. Education Committee, CCAT, Social Education Committee, there's small like little like who we are logos that kind of show up. Like you put them on PowerPoint slides, you put it to the board, kind of thing. You're public facing logo. And so for us, the really heart of what we do is basically listening and feedback. So the ear was great in theory, but I'm hearing that people don't love it in practice. What would you recommend instead? The kind of ear or?
Yeah, the visual of it. I think we kind of said an ear in the light bulb is kind of what it reminded us of, but the ear, it looks like an ear in a keyhole. I just think it just needs to be,
Retweets.
yes.
Absolutely. Okay.
Even a light bulb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do like
I
the idea that we're
Ideas.
listening or giving a voice. I think the idea is, but I think it just needs a different kind of.
We'll mock one up with a ear and a light bulb. So 2 separate ones, to bring it back to you ladies.
And then, so our next thoughts we're looking at is informal discussions and community events, feedback from online surveys, and our role in physical connection. So I really wanted to kind of get back on the jump of this, but I feel like there's things kind of passing us by. We just had a meeting last Wednesday, and we passed the racial, policy, which is great. And we also have the Middletown, school, consideration, which you might have heard in the paper originally. I wasn't in love with, having the middle and schools pushed together. I just think a lot of children just grew up into it. I wasn't a fan of that.
There are a lot of people in Middletown.
Okay. Well, good thing I'm not alone now. Again, I said to me that if the community wanted it, then I would let it go, but on Facebook, he told me it didn't strike me as what we should get doing. So, but just in mentioning that, there's things happening that the community wants to give us feedback about. Now, I know, tomorrow, there's actually going to have to meet, community in Middletown, to hear the feedback about the school. And I heard things about about the track and about that money coming in. So we want to make sure we kind of can get ahead of that in the future, or just kind of just be right with it at least. I feel like, man, that happened. We can just be out there getting the information and getting that feedback. So I really want to see us kind of get the catch on that. So that's kind of where we are right there. In terms of surveys, I wanted to ask Dyson if we could partner with them on surveys. I don't know, the survey that go out to community. If our community could if there's an online one right by the county, what if we could join in and do physical feedback? You guys have circles you're already in. We it'd be an additional arm, have a paper version of that to get to the people in person, kind of help bring that feedback in. That's what we do.
We do have a pretty comprehensive survey for parents, students, staff members, so that's something that you could use as a tool when that comes in. But I don't see why you could take the community one or parent one and have it with you, hard copy, or however you want to do it. We're always cautious.
How many questions are on that one?
Close to 40.
Okay, maybe it's more like a handout, maybe a QR code or a pass to the link. Maybe after that, just 40 questions. That's a whole meeting. That's not it.
Yeah.
And so I guess right there, we're gonna have to talk from Sabrina Mail, our ombudsman, about what the ombudsman office does. They're kind of like the formal arm of connection for the county. And so unfortunately, she's not feeling well, so she couldn't be here this evening. And so instead of that, I was going to ask the committee in terms of looking forward, what are some things that you're thinking about? We need to go back and look at what's over here. What things you community is looking at to feedback on? Was it homework, was it busing? What things are you seeing that we should probably start getting a jump on? Because the thing is, we don't have to wait for the board's meeting or the next building to be done. There's either kind of in between the cracks that are happening, that are being spoken about and asked about. What are the things we should be asking the community?
So we were at the last meeting, and we understood our job was to informally go out and ask our community before this meeting. So I talked to the PTA president of Middletown Primary and Elementary.
Excellent.
And then I also talked to a handful of other community members, just people I knew, just in passing, telling them what I was on. And I actually typed up a list of what they all said. And a lot of them were duplicates, people said the same thing. So I have it. I don't know if you want us to share,
Please, yes,
okay,
absolutely.
so,
Yes,
the biggest number one concern was the calendar, the half days, and the random feeling days off, that they are incredibly challenging and not suitable for working parents. It's just far too many half days to get childcare, and that was the number one, I think everybody mentioned it, the calendar. The desire to return to pre-COVID operations with things such as field trips, elementary science fairs, STEM night, that stuff's just not happening. Equitable field trips across schools and grade levels. For example, Middletown Primary, Middletown Elementary, almost every grade goes to the fair, and they go to the ESSL. Other schools are going to Annapolis, the aquarium. They're like, why are our schools not going? Kind of thing. Digital safety. Bullying, especially cyberbullying, and this is a big issue in grades 4 and 5. Safe community overall, race, LGBTQ+, and gun violence. Recess needing to be better monitored. perhaps more monitors, more engagement from the monitors. Recess behavior is very concerning. Recess language is very concerning. And it's nothing's really happening with it. But all the kids are coming home talking about what's going on at recess. Middletown Elementary School, parents want a better safety protection for the open floor plan in case of active shooters. Parents are really unhappy in general that the school doesn't have walls.
Which school is that?
Middletown Elementary School.
Oh, sure.
Medical needs are not being supported in schools. They want CPR training for all staff.
Is that for that?
Not for all staff.
For all staff, yeah. They had an incident at the elementary school and, with a student, and then I guess everyone found out that everybody is not trained in CPR.
Okay.
One of the concerns expressed was elementary counselors meeting the needs of their school communities, kind of focusing in and, hosting groups and doing things that the parents feel their kids need, not just, I guess, what they're doing sometimes feels kind of random or not aligned with what people think their kids need from the school counselors. An assistant principal at Middletown Elementary School, regardless of student enrollment numbers. We had one, we lost one because we're short just a few kids. And it really seems to be a disservice at the school to not have an AP principal. And I can give you this, you don't have to write all these down. Yeah, you can have it. At Middletown Middle School, some special needs students have to forego specials to meet accommodation needs.
I can tell you at the middle school level, we are changing curriculum to meet that.
Okay, because they want their specials back. They want their special needs students to have, the same specials that everybody else gets.
Yes, just had a meeting about that, and that's coming to be in the fall.
Well, that parent will be thrilled to hear that.
Is that special needs including, is it just special needs or is it also kids that are needing extra
Across the
academic
board.
help?
Yes.
Okay, so that would include everyone to not have specials or their electives anymore?
So what's gonna happen is, actually, if you check out the, most recent, CNI committee meeting, board docs, so you kind of see the PowerPoints are there, but I'm gonna try to just speak it to you. But they're gonna make it to where, like, you're gonna have, the Department of Health, if I don't miss anything. We're gonna have the schedule where it's gonna be broken out, where something's gonna be semesterized, where they were yearly. And we're not gonna be just placing kids in, classes in the last 21 are. They're gonna get you to choose those classes. And so there's gonna be a lot more choice in the middle school level. They're gonna have their basic math, reading, science, but then after those classes, there's gonna be an open schedule that they can choose. And there'll be more classes to choose from. Also, they'll be able to do it more often. So before they had elective, they went over the entire year. Now it's gonna be semesterized. So there's gonna be two electives in 1 year. If you have them pulled out for, say, extra help or support, then you might just, you would just have that 1 semester, you still have them let them, open for you. So there's a lot more choice in those schools.
I have a question. Would it be helpful if we had like standardized questions? And maybe you guys talked about this last time, sorry, but I missed it. But like standard questions that we would use when we go out to solicit feedback, like, I mean, a conversation, but kind of like general buckets that we're covering. So that we're all kind of getting the same
Yes,
type information.
and so we actually, we did ask those, we had those questions on, we
Oh, I'm sorry.
covered the, I forget what they were, we asked them like, what's going well? What's going well? What needs to improve? And what other feedback that you have, open questions, like,
Okay.
what's going well? What should we improve upon? And what if we haven't had general feedback? Did I have that somewhere?
It is.
Yeah, it's on the back. It's
Yeah,
because
it's
we
on the-
decided we didn't want specific questions to give people the idea. We don't want to influence their answer and be like, so what do you think about?
No,
you know?
no, no, yeah, no.
So
that
we
makes
came up with the general,
Okay.
what do you think is going well? Which I did ask, but everyone was just really happy to get to talk about the things they were not happy about. So, yeah, this is what I got.
I actually have to say that, our elementary school, in particular, Market Elementary, I think has done a really good job getting back to pre-COVID, like with bringing the families in and STEM nights and involvement, a lot of.
Yeah, we are definitely not there yet. So if you two want here, look at that Google Doc. There we go. Printed it.
And then it actually, which does much about the pre-COVID stuff, and I'll get back to it in 1 minute. We kind of had that same other drive again when we first started, that's something that hasn't changed for us. Like, you know, we're not looking at the, overarching goals anymore. We're looking at parent feedback. There's still a goal for us to, you know, get parents involved in the schools and get back to, you know, pre-COVID connections and have kids in the school again. And actually, my son was in the work elementary, and I just actually, for the record, I cried when, he graduated, like, he had a great time at that school. So it's like, man, off to middle school, you know, but like, yeah, you really enjoy this time in the market. So I'm grateful for that.
I think that's one of the things, like when parents talked about the field trips not being equitable, like that same kind of thing. If they're doing their pre-COVID stuff, why are we not doing our pre-COVID stuff? Like,
And so some of that comes down to, I can tell you, the field trips, it comes down to the, because those are like, I'm just saying here, but those are gonna be teacher based. Like, as a teacher, I went and I got trained at the aquarium. So now I have, I can take a school to the aquarium for free for life. I got some training that happened a while back. And so always we got to buses together, like an appointment, we can go to the aquarium. So you may have a school that the teacher may have had that, maybe they retired, and nobody else has that. And then actually the future was on work. Because they fill out the forms, you had to find the buses, you had to get the insurance, you go to the nurse, and you get all the drill down, and you have to get everybody's, EpiPens and, you know, medicines, and this person can't be stomach too long. And so some teachers go like, you know, it's a lot of work, I'm not doing it. And so, and they go, no, I'm not doing it. And you know, it doesn't happen. So I think maybe if we could, I think the feedback from that is like, you know, is there a way to streamline it? Is there a way to do that? You know?
Getting more
Or their
PTA and all that
incentive
thing. So
Right.
parents
teachers
should
to
assist
do it.
teachers in doing it, because it's a lot of extra work.
Right now, I'm telling my kids the APL, I have to use a bus quote, and I have to go show a future form, I have to go talk to the nurse and flow down, find out who's gonna do what, and when they can do it. And then these kids have to pay the money for the bus. And it's just like, all this extra things you're doing, you're doing a bid planner on the go. I think that's what happens with teachers. Some of them are like, it's all about it, others are like, I don't know.
Would it be an entire position at FCPS Central to be in charge of field trips?
That's something that could be brought up.
I contacted my middle school, beginning of the school year in September, and asked, will we have field trips for the middle schoolers this year? I know that we've done this in the past, can we get back to it? Could they even just at least go to the fair? I know it's too late this year, but what about next year? And I was told that it is up to the teachers and the department heads and things like that, and I was never beyond that, I was supposed to be got back to, I wasn't. So, and I said, please put me in touch with whoever would be wanting to do it, I'll do legwork.
It's something
I'll
that-
volunteer,
it's
but-
something to- Yeah, some volunteers, and they can maybe move up from there, but, for your coordinator for a region, that'd be nice, somebody to help the teachers out, get that together. Maybe it might get close for, it's a bus route by themselves, it's crazy.
Because then you could even maybe get county discounts if every fourth grader in the county goes to Annapolis. Like and then because, so I went to a few PTA meetings in the Oakdale Theater too, and actually autonomy and equity among all the schools and field trips kind of came up with that as well. That, you know, we go through a lot of redistricting in the county and because of overcrowding and things like that. And I went to a few of like the redistricting meetings and a lot of community members were saying that that it's equal everywhere, but it's not, because there's a lot of decisions that happen with individual administrations, and you have some schools that really focus on the arts and have really strong arts programs, and then other schools that, which is great if we're allowing kids equal opportunity, and I'm not saying like completely, but we do need to make sure that we are offering equitable programs at every school, that kids have opportunities for enrichment at every school, and that kids have opportunities. So that was something, you know, parents are concerned about, of just making sure that, because then you have a different, we change administrators a lot. And if the administrator at one school has a lot of decision-making power, the school culture can change. And then some of the focus on, you know, they might choose staffing to focus more on, instead of enrichment, on intervention. And you can understand why looking at the numbers, but it does change the school culture for that child's experience. So just making sure that there is some equity among the schools. If every school is offering enrichment and intervention and, you know, arts opportunities, even if maybe they do go to another school. I think that happens a lot in the high schools, but not as much at the elementary level. And I know right now at the elementary level with, my understanding is we went away from the magnet school program, like at Newmarket. But I think we're still building up like the gifted and talented program. So kind of just making sure that are the administrators talking to each other and like sharing ideas of how they're all utilizing staff to make sure that kids are getting both enrichment and intervention at all schools.
And so that is our drive to do that. We're actually phasing out the magnet program.
Right.
To do that at all schools. I have to get a chance to go walk through that program, because I've only seen it the one way. I'd love to see it, you know, what they're doing with it now. Hearing that we're actually catching, one thing that's really happening now, what we do is called universal screening. So before you had that, they have a teacher go, oh, I think that kid should go, or like, you know, a parent had a question to ask.
Is that the both?
Yeah, and so like now we're just doing a universal catch. Everyone takes it, and you're looking for everyone's exceptionality. So like I think this is going to really, you know, it has already increased our number of students who are identified as talented. And now to be in school, parents are concerned about like, you know, traveling. But I know I did when I was traveling on bus with all the kids and like go away and go. It's a little. Now they have been meeting at the school. I asked you something about the classroom setup. You know, at Newmarket, Mrs. Woolsey had a dynamic classroom. It was very like, it was choice seating. It was like a beanbag or a couch or a chair. So COVID kind of just crunched it all back in. So I'm hoping they get back to that here and that it's happening slowly.
Yeah, no, I think it's good that we're phasing out the magnet school program personally. I mean, and I think most community members that I heard from felt the same way. I think they just want to make sure that all schools are offering, because even if a kid didn't get identified, I think the issue with the magnet school program is you might have a kid who's really strong with math, but did not score for ELA or for language arts, so they didn't get into the program. But they needed enrichment other than just doing Dreambox in the classroom. So I think that's what parents are hearing, is that they just are saying, that's what I'm hearing them say, is they just want to make sure that there's equity between, because when I think they're concerned, administrators are making tough decisions with budget and stuff like that. But we need to make sure, just because we have at this school, there might be a really large group that needs intervention focus, and staffing is going into like reading intervention and math intervention. We're not ignoring the group of kids that really would benefit from enrichment.
Well, our policy is that they do that anymore. So we
Okay.
actually are meeting kids in the classroom where they're in cluster groups and meet in groups. And so like, you may have a kid who may like, for me, honestly, I was a gifted kid, but honestly, on paper, I excelled way higher in my reading than in my math.
Right.
My math I need more work on.
Yeah.
But I could read, you know, 1,000 words a minute. But like math and what? Divide the what?
Yeah.
And so like, you know, I think, you know, the focus is on the kids who are like me. You know, I wasn't gifted, so I just worked harder. But now we're actually gonna have kids supported in the struggling areas and be able to go higher and higher areas. That's actually happening now.
Good. And I definitely think people are seeing the shift, just that there is gifted and talented at all the schools, I believe now. But I think there's, it's still a process.
It is.
And I think
We're
it's
phasing it
something that
in,
we're
yes.
communicating, because the parents have a lot of questions about it, because it's new. So I think just making sure that's just something that the parents are
So
speaking
marketing
out that
for
they
that.
want. Yes, but also explaining that and like making parents feel that, because there is still a lot of, or the parents feel that there is still a lot of administrator leeway. And I think that can be, I can understand the reason personally, but I'm saying I think parents are just feeling like they're concerned their kids are not getting the same opportunities as a school with a different administrator.
And that shouldn't be the case, because what happened, we're screening universally now, because identified, they're identified.
But not just academics.
Okay.
Right, I understand what you're saying, that like
Yeah.
across the board, everybody hears like what some school is doing, that their school isn't doing, that their school's getting, and, you know, their
You know,
school
like-
isn't.
Fifth grade promotion ceremonies, like,
Okay.
you know, like there's just, and I'm not saying everything has to be streamlined, but I think
Yeah.
parents are definitely feeling that's something that they're concerned about. You know, Spring Ridge Elementary is not necessarily getting the same opportunities as Oakdale Elementary. And some of it, we can kind of understand the, you know, the background and reasoning for it, but it came up also with TJ Middle School and Oak, because sticking with my feeder pattern. But I feel like that is something that is across the board in the county.
They might put like administrative personality and like, one might do an ice cream truck, one might do like a guest speaker, like, it's kind of like.
Principals who have a lot of autonomy when it comes to field trips. I just think of Myersville, some of the things that they've done that you probably wouldn't have seen. They go down to, oh, what's the park in Myersville, and they do stream.
The Alpha School.
Yeah.
So it,
And I'm not saying, I don't think parents really recognize that there's gonna be different staff members willing to take things on, but I think they're feeling a very big disconnect.
The level of what's being
Yes.
seen. So not that, I don't think people care that it's different, they care that their school's level is not matching.
Yeah.
Level of activity, level
Not
of
every
enrichment,
ceremony.
level
I'm
of.
trying to put it to where we do, but to, the superintendent and team, they can go, like.
I think a balance between administrator autonomy, but also equity, so that parents are feeling like their children are having an equitable school
For like
experience.
events and like, kind of like school
The
culture.
The whole,
Yes.
like the whole thing, the whole school, and I know in Middletown, parents really feel that between the primary and the elementary. A lot of people feel like that should be a seamless experience because it's K through 5, but we're split K through 2 and the 3 through 5, and people speaking generally, what people have said, they love the primary school and then are not so loving the elementary school, and they feel that the culture change is very different, the activity level is different, the environment is different, and they want their elementary school kids K through 5 to have that same experience, and it's not the same. And I also heard a lot about the lack of parental feeling, lack of enrichment for children who are above, not necessarily gifted, but above reading level, above math level. There's a lot of intervention, I think especially with COVID, there's been this huge push for the intervention, understandably, the kids who are really behind in reading and math, but those advanced kids who aren't necessarily gifted, parents feel like they're just floating around, like they're above what everyone else in the room is doing. They might be given extra worksheets or something, but they're not getting that time with the reading specialist or the math specialist to enrich their experience and what they need.
Well, they should
And not to
change.
take away from one group of students.
Right.
Nobody wants to take away from one group, just make sure that every student is getting, and I realize that that is why we're here in education, but I think that is a concern that parents are.
From my experience at the elementary school at Newmarket this year and the past few years, even with COVID, I know the magnet program and it's been being phased out, and this is the first year I believe there's no magnet. That 5th grade magnet last year was the last graduating class. I'm confused what the gifted and talented program. Can someone explain that to me?
we can always, and I've seen this with past CACs, bring in if the talent is an area that you'd really like to hear more about, and get into the weeds, we can invite Dr. Brian Hart to come and speak to it. We call it highly able, gifted, talented, advanced academics.
Okay.
It's pretty much all the same thing.
But did magnet used to be the gifted and talented, or are those, okay. I'm just getting confused at the interchange terminology, but right now, I don't feel that, I feel that it's actually been very well done with getting kids on the levels that they need to be. So at Newmarket, for example, grades, I think 3 through 5, the kids all potentially move for math. So their homeroom teacher is appropriately challenging people within groups in all subject matter. And then for math, the kids are divided much more specifically, and the kids all figure out what it is, and they know, oh, there's that, it's fun, whatever, and this and that. And there's the kids that need a lot of enrichment, but everybody's getting what they need. And also from experience, some kids are just gonna be beyond grade level, and they're gonna get 100%. And I think it's hard to really expect single attention for someone that is just getting everything right and understands things faster and quicker.
Well, we should definitely provide for every student classroom, and for students who I've had places that I've taught before who I knew were smarter than me. Basically Chuckman, I had, see his face. But like, for those students who were just going beyond, what happens is, it's just a training to do this. They provide them with, real world examples, and they kind of do what Marco, I forgot his name, Marco Rumi, kind of get out of their way.
Right, so
So
they
the
might
volume
not
just
get
goes forward.
extra time with a teacher, or maybe they will, but they can get, like you said, the highly able, okay, it's maybe extended, answer a little more detailed, or give us 8 sentences instead of 4.
Sure.
But even that curriculum can be changed too, like not, like they could be working, on a different curriculum.
But they are
too.
doing that now, I feel,
And
in
that's
the,
good.
in the
Yeah, but
elementary
I'm not sure
level.
that's happening at every school.
At the higher level, they're gonna have different kind of products,
Right,
and they're gonna actually, do more choice, so they get to show how their work comes out, so I know teachers that are doing that in the
Mhm.
classroom. for-
but it's not something tangible you're gonna be able to see as a parent necessarily, unless the teacher says, well, for everything I give to, 90% of my students, your child has this sort of tweaked version, or I'm asking them extra questions, or I'm asking them to expand it this
It
way.
should be identified.
Because- But you can identify and say your child's working on the 6th grade level curriculum versus, and they're in 5th grade.
That's,
Is it
and that's
done
happening
At your school.
at my school,
It's
yes.
not happening consistently at every school. Not every school is changing and having some kids, who are in 2nd grade work on 3rd grade level curriculum.
Well, it doesn't start that young.
No, I know, but I'm just, actually in other counties it does.
Yeah.
But there definitely, I think, could be areas where there's more differentiation. And I think, but that also tells you right there, if that's happening in Newmarket Elementary, and that's not happening at Spring Ridge Elementary, that's, I think, what parents are concerned about. That it is happening at some schools and not happening at others. So how can we make sure that there is some consistency in the county for that kind of differentiation?
It sounds like prescriptive requirements for the principals or the administration.
We always want our teachers to be able to differentiate. Some are really, really good at it, some are okay at it, and sometimes you just have teachers that
Well,
are
and I
not
think-
strong at differentiating.
Sorry, this is passion of mine. But I think within the classroom, you're always gonna have to differentiate. But I think what also needs to happen to support those teachers is if you have a group of students who are ready to move to 5th grade curriculum that are in 4th grade, you can't expect that same teacher to teach multiple curriculums. But so the principal needs to help provide, or the county needs to help provide that structure that says, how are we going to identify which kids are ready for this? How are we, having the teachers at Newmarket Middle meet up with teachers at the schools so that there is some consistency across the county so that every student is getting that kind of opportunity.
So we do have, I'm gonna say this probably wrong, but we do have like, highly able learner, victim company specialist in the other school now. So there's someone who's there trained to support the teachers in providing that.
Yeah.
So it used to be the model for middle school, and we had elementary position and magnet themselves, but now we're phasing that into where you have somebody who's there to provide that extra sauce to the teacher, help them differentiate and support that student who's going above and beyond. So,
Are they able to meet with each other? Like, do they have
they
like
do meet
meetings where they
teachers,
meet?
yes. They meet, and they train them out of, how they run an office. So that person reports to the, director of the central office, and they go back to the schools and provide the teachers.
So do they all have the same framework though? So if you send a highly able learner specialist to elementary school, what sort of framework do they have to execute at that school?
They do have a framework. I would want Dr. Reinhardt to come speak to that, if that's the will.
So I'm hearing that, it seems to be kind of a.
Well, I think it goes under the topic of autonomy versus, consistency. Because I think that's an area that should be consistent at every school,
I
that,
think you can speak to how we're just, I think you can speak to how we're being consistent in the area, how we're growing towards that, phasing in the new model.
We work significantly from a system-wide, and this present specifically get to what you're talking about, but for the longest time, there was a strong leadership belief for site-based management. That was the popular term in Frederick County Public Schools, dating back to the 80s and the 90s. And that gave almost complete autonomy to principals. And a lot of the research now does not support site-based management, which you, instead of having a system of schools, you have a school of systems. So we've been really, really working hard to eliminate the site-based management. Not that we don't want to give principals autonomy, we feel that that's important, but we need to have freedom within fences. Because what happens is exactly what you're speaking to right now, is uneven implementation. Families talk to families, and if an opportunity is happening at one school and it's not happening at another school, that's a significant issue. If you look at Catoctin and Brunswick right now in the high schools, because of their enrollment, they just can't offer some of the advanced courses. And we're trying to look at some of the things we learned during the pandemic, and we use virtual learning as a mechanism. But even implementation has been a concern for me since I arrived in 2014, and we continue to battle it. And I know with the introduction of the shift in advanced academics, it's going to take some time to get even implementation across the system. But it is recognized. Same thing with field trips.
Yeah, I think it all falls under the umbrella, not to, but I think because that was a big transition out of the magnet school program. But I think, and it doesn't just have to be part of the highly abled. You know, I think it can just be, how do we group students? So, you know, and that
That's
would
the
be.
model, it goes universal.
No, I get it. I'm just saying, it's not just gonna be the highly abled teacher
Mhm.
or the teacher from that program. Like, I think every teacher needs to be involved with it, not just out of that office. Like, I know in Howard County, we have the GT teacher, but they teach their curriculum. And then I happen to be teaching the above grade level fifth graders. And then we have 3 classes of on grade level that also has some math intervention going on. We make sure they have a mix of role models, not just the students that need support in one group. But it takes a lot of conversation to make sure that that is consistent among all the schools.
And I think we need to be careful too, because as important as it is to meet all the students where we are, we cannot add more to the plates of our staff.
Right.
So we need to figure out, okay, we've got to do this, but we need to figure out how best to get all these kids without asking our teachers to do one more thing. Because honestly,
Because I think that actually will take things off, because I know as a
it could
teacher.
if we do it the right way.
Because
yes.
if I have a class and I'm recognizing that I have 5 students who are well beyond the curriculum that I am teaching, that's a lot to be like, okay, am I gonna start exposing them to some 5th grade curriculum? Am I going to just extend with problem solving? Am I gonna throw them on Dreambox? What am I doing to reach those needs? Because then I also have a group of students who really need support. They're still learning your addition fast. So that's where it's expecting a lot when you're not looking at regrouping. You know, I think, because I know one year at Spring Ridge, they actually experimented with creating homeroom classes based on math levels, not reading levels. And it didn't work well because then they struggled to have reading groups.
Yeah.
So I think we just have to look at how regrouping, like being across, you know, to offer the different levels so that this teacher can focus on this curriculum and what these kids need.
Like
There's
late
still gonna
elementary,
be
they
a
used to
plan.
switch for math. 4th and 5th grade, they would go, okay, it's math time, and everyone would go, and then you would teach your math curriculum, and you would teach your math curriculum, and then the kids got to go
Yes.
where they needed to go, got to work with the other kids.
I think they
You
still
know,
do that.
that's what,
Like in Middletown, they
they do.
switch in 4th and 5th
But
grade for
some,
math.
and we stopped
But
doing
that's
it
not
depending on the
Yeah.
principal, so we stopped doing that. and
Right
I
now,
thought it
the
was
only
really-
switching that's going on at our elementary school is some kids go to the highly able teacher. So there's a whole other like groups within that span.
I feel like when they switched, it was helpful because then you were just teaching the one.
Exactly,
Class
and that
and
is,
math
and then you
over
can focus and really,
Yeah.
and I think it benefits the teachers, especially with the
Oh my
workload and
gosh.
understaffing we
Got
have
it.
right
And
now.
maybe the
Yes.
teachers should be asked how they think it's going at their different schools by Dr. Reinhardt and his team. see how they think they're achieving and if they are overworked or it's going smoothly at, say, Newmarket versus Oakdale because going to a some kids getting pulled to the high label versus everybody switching for math is a totally different way of implementing the framework. So maybe feedback.
So that's interesting. So like asking the director to kind of survey the staff to see what they think about
For themselves and the children.
that's
And it
something-
might be very new for most of them to even know, because they've never done it before.
It's a very in-depth and very perceptive, use of the committee you have, right, with yourself, come up with how it works.
And I think that that's a good question, not just for the highly able group, but also like even the K through 2 teachers who have those kids in there who they're not being separated. You know, their reading groups sure are like higher, but asking those teachers too, like, do you feel you can give them enough? Do you need the reading specialist in, not just for intervention, but also for enrichment? Like, because the K through 2 isn't getting those pullouts
No,
and
you'd be
those.
surprised how many kids you, as a teacher, who used to teach first, you can tell.
Right, and you can tell, so
already
that's why I'm
fixed.
saying, like, ask them, like, I mean, I know that my son, my youngest son, not my oldest son, is way above reading level. He's in 2nd grade, so they don't have that stuff. His teacher's doing what she can do in the classroom. And I've talked to other parents whose kids are getting those, you know, way above reading level, and they're like, well, why isn't my kid meeting with the reading specialist? Why are only the intervention kids meeting with the reading specialist? Why are the kids who need enrichment not meeting with the reading specialist? Same with math, like, the math specialists are meeting with the kids who need intervention. No one wants to take that away from them, but people whose kids are really advanced in math are saying, why can't my kid meet with the math specialist and do enrichment?
Or not the specialist, but maybe somebody from the
Right,
highly able, sorry, we call
But
it.
the goal is to train every teacher to be able to implement the high-level curriculum, and the person is a point person. But I think the questions you're asking are great. I think if that Reinhardt would be great to kind of hear him lay it out, and then from there, questions may be answered while he's speaking, and then better questions will be generated while he's talking. So I think having him to get him on the calendar would be great.
Can I ask a broader question? I'm curious to know, having missed the previous meetings, so I admit I'm a little bit ignorant of this. Do we have like a set of themes that we're gonna be focusing on or addressing? We have limited meetings and limited time, right? And the feedback that you both provided tonight based upon PTA engagement, I think is fantastic, right? But I heard, you know, just tonight, I heard broad themes: calendar, digital safety, race, LGBTQ, discipline, physical safety, I mentioned, healthcare and crisis response, and staffing. It seems to me that maybe one way of going about our business is to try to, because this discussion you're having is great, but there are a lot of us that are at a loss because I, wasn't prepared that would be the discussion tonight, right? But if we could come up with maybe a list of themes that we're going to address, a different one each month, both based upon our input, but also maybe based upon board needs, right? The board needs feedback on things like, what are your big muscle movements? Budget, you tell us, right? Curriculum development, exactly. There might be big things in the calendar that could drive that. But based upon those two sides, we can then develop some themes for a theme for each meeting. And then, I and others, we all can use that as the sort of the information gathering point as I go around to the PTA meetings in our different feeder patterns. Say, hey, October, we're gonna be talking about this at the advisory council. What's going right, what's going wrong? Then we've got more information to bring to you.
I think this is
So
kind of the
that
point.
is- I think that's what we're trying to get
to.
That's what we're talking about. yeah.
Okay.
That is-
But we just needed a place to start, so that's why our goal was very broad, just introduce our committee to our feeder pattern so they know what we are doing.
Okay.
And that we are that link, and our mission. And then just to get a general consensus, and then we can use it to focus and kind of like what you
Everything
said.
you're saying, so
before-
we've been discussing, like, we want to gather feedback from the community, take what we've been hearing, filter it down, what are the big things we're seeing?
Got it.
And-
So if we're hearing the same thing from this feeder pattern, from every feeder pattern, then that might be an area of focus.
Because the board's responsibility in this instance is for the community to tell them what they need to know. Tell them what we don't know. And that's, so we're gonna tell you what to find out for us, and that happens sometimes. There are times where, like, right now, as a board member, I wanna see homework kind of change a little bit. But that's kind of like, that's coming from the board down. But from the board's general stances, what should we be looking at? What are we missing? So, like, we're looking for in between the cracks, like, what did we ask about?
But I think that that'd be useful to know, like, if you're thinking homework needs to be addressed, and then there are other board members that the same view.
That's me as a board member.
Fair enough, but you want feedback, right?
Yeah, I'm looking for feedback. So the thing is, I know from students, parents that homework is a thing that like, now this is, I mentioned that like, that's why it's my personal challenge.
We don't have to dive into details of homework. I'm with you that maybe it deserves to be mentioned. But my point is, before we go about inviting guest speakers, although HAL is obviously a very important issue, maybe we want to weigh it against the other themes we might want to address with our remaining seven meetings.
Of today, and from our meetings, we were looking at feedback from the community and to take it all together and drill it down. Where are we seeing our major themes? What's coming up? We hear parent involvement is a big thing comes up. We're taking all this feedback, we're gathering. What do we look at? And then go drill down in that, get those topics to the community and get that to the board. Look at these things. So that's kind of what we're doing.
I think the issue.
Ours is really different than what you guys are talking about, so I'm anxious to hear,
Yeah, I think the issue is that last meeting, there were only like 4 of us here, and there was some communication drop because something was supposed to go out to everybody who wasn't here, letting you all know that we were supposed to be, kind of feeling the waters in our communities, to come tonight with their feedback so that we could do exactly what you're saying, hold the big
We were gonna look at what was
issues.
consistent,
Um,
and then focus.
John, I can really appreciate what you're saying. This is my second school district is serving as a liaison to the board from the CAC. And I can tell you historically what has happened both in Frederick County and my former school district is when you bring a group of people together and you just start regurgitating, this is what I heard, and this is my agenda, and this is my issue, and you have no structure to it, you'll have 2 or 3 people that will remain by the end of this. I've seen it happen over the course of this is my 16th year serving on a cabinet level position. I promise you, you'll be down to 2 people if you don't do what John's saying and structure it very specifically.
Yeah.
And
No, I agree, and I think that was my point, though, I think we said that too.
That was the intention, yeah.
We just were trying to identify.
Instead, we had one person drop out tonight by email. But it's already 10 after 8, and it was a great discussion
I
about
think
HAL.
we did get off the tangent
But
on that,
maybe we
because
could
I didn't go to my list.
Maybe head back up to the 10,000 foot level and talk about, okay, what are the major, so what did you hear are any of those themes that I mentioned, which you all shared, any of those resonate, maybe we can rise back to that level with the remaining 20 minutes we have.
Can I finish with some of the
Sure,
other,
sure,
because
sure.
that was just one. The other thing is, and I've heard it from actually people in other feeder patterns too, is holding builders accountable for building and planning ahead for building schools. Because people are very concerned about schools already being overcrowded without a plan for building new schools. And that's not something I know, but it is definitely, is Frederick County holding builders accountable to invest in our school system and that might be more of a county thing, but that is, no, I know. But that is something that people are definitely concerned about, is how we're going to problem solve with overcrowding. That was, we covered calendar, field trips was also on mine, but pretty much it was autonomy. And then a little bit of, because of the problem solving with overcrowding in my feeder, that we have weird things with like kids going to one elementary school, then going to a different middle school, and then being asked to go into a completely different high school. Like the kids at TJ Middle School being torn between with sports, academics, getting part of the TJ culture, but then being pulled back into the Oakdale feeder pattern. Making sure that they're feeling like part of it.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why are they getting gangs back and forth?
So the Spring Ridge community is pretty large, but because Oakdale High School and Oakdale Middle, well, not high school, the middle school is very overcrowded. It's huge. So the entire Spring Ridge community has a very long bus ride to TJ Middle, and then the entire community goes back to Oakdale High School. So for things like some kids at TJ Middle in the Spring Ridge community are trying out for Oakdale Middle School basketball, some are trying out for the TJ Middle School basketball, it just but also just, there's actually fighting going on at the school because some kids are wearing Oakdale football shirts, some kids are wearing TJ football shirts. So we all know what a joy middle schoolers are, but it definitely adds to that culture of kids just kind of already dealing with middle school stuff, and that I think is a result of the overcrowding.
So that's a question of feeder pattern alignment almost, right, between elementary schools and middle schools.
And how as a county, the county has to deal with holding the building, the builders accountable. Board of Ed only has so much say, but how can we as a school system still problem solve with the overcrowding issue?
And I think that is a huge symptom of all the wheels are not turning in the same direction. And a lot of times a municipality will depend on county policy or school policy or state highway policies. Oh, well, we can build this neighborhood because in the school system, the developer's gonna have to pay for new schools. And none of that actually happens in the time that it needs to happen.
Yeah.
So
So we can add that
that's
to the
definitely a
list.
huge issue.
Yeah. So I do think that would be a big one if we wanna.
It is way above our pay grade, but yeah.
But it is
It's such a
something
big,
that communities are
10,000
very concerned about from even outside of my feeder that I was supposed to discuss.
Do we have all the feeders like represented here, or is there a way to like split it up?
Upon initiation of the program, we did. We just had one pattern, Brunswick who wasn't represented. I did see the recent email, someone who said, Mary Lynn, I'm not sure what pattern she was under. We are in need of a retool.
Yeah.
Right, so our delay, causes some pain, and we have, we're going to a sluggish start. We have to, and I've been very mindful of the same thing. We have to find, a focus. And so initially, the plan was to look at feeder patterns per area. But right now, we're going to get into the bylaws, because right now, we're looking at an 8-member thing, so we have to look at being able to move the thing forward. So I don't know how we can look at that, so we can.
It would be something you would need to raise with the board.
Yeah.
We would have to collectively change the bylaw.
Okay.
Could we, and just a thought too, because I do agree that I think conversations should be streamlined moving forward, but I wonder if we share this list, as our liaisons to the board, could then they give us direction on, we'd like you to focus on this first, maybe it could even, I think I mentioned at the last meeting, could it be timely with when the board's discussing?
For the board meetings, they come out 7 days beforehand.
Right.
So we can raise the time in our meetings to come when the board drops the agenda. What happens is the board's charge to the committee is to bring things we can look at to them. So the
Okay.
board isn't gonna tell you, look at this, and it may happen.
But
the
I mean,
board is-
based on the list that we have now presented.
That's a lot. The board needs to, like you said before, we streamline it down, say, here, top 3 things.
Okay.
Look at this, this, and this. The thing is, at the same time, you want to, line up that with the dice is a lot. You said we did. And so we want to be able to, effectively, people are saying things to us, and a lot of things people say about surveys and everything they do is like, I'll tell you this right here, but it's going to change. And so we want to be able to have people, feel that there's an effective this committee. And I'm zealous for this committee. I see equity, I see, special education, I see, what's the committee we had? I'm like, well, we can do that. This committee can move things forward. So I really want to, this committee, make a difference. We have to drill down and define our problem and go after it. So I think and for us, it's just to find that problem and present it to the board, the idea to the board perhaps. The board may take action on the idea differently than we do. We have to find the things we can look at. And so that's really a challenge.
I think it would be helpful if it's kind of more of a push-pull approach though. I mean, certainly, the board wants things to rise up from the bottom of the community, right? Through
Yes.
organizations like this, bodies like this,
Yes.
right? But it has to be the case that the board is also curious to know broad community feedback on, as I call them, big muscle movements or big decisions, right? Aside from the people that just show up at the meetings every other Wednesday, right? Because you tend to get the most vocal, let's say, and, you know, I've been among them, but you tend to get the most vocal people at those meetings, right? I think it would be helpful if we put forward a list of themes. Say, here's what we want to address one by one over the following months. But ask the board, do you have things you would like us to add to the agenda that we will then take out into the community, collect feedback on, and we'll determine whether or not we're going to add those to our list of themes?
I can tell you, I can ask the board that question, absolutely. But I can tell you over the last few months, it doesn't work on a few years, we've been fighting this stand the community up. And we got stood up, and then we got stood up, so we got stood up. So we stood the committee up, and we got put on pause for a few months. And while there were changes in the county, which was fine. We're back in action. And we can, and I've been asking for several meetings of the board that actually gets back to get it unpaused again. And so I can tell you, it was no small thing that we actually are back on this year.
Why was it a fight?
Because some members thought it would be better for the board to have to restart after the election.
I mean, it seems like we should be proposing solutions as well. I mean,
Exactly.
if we're just handing them this like crap list of like, oh, these are all the things that
You
are
know,
broken, that's
and
gonna
I'm
be so
not
sad.
imagining
So,
that I can do that.
yeah, that's what I'm
Otherwise,
saying.
we
I
kind
think
of
we need to
hone
like,
in.
yeah, exactly.
Again,
Yes, it should be part of the
Completely
process,
agree
I
with you.
think.
Like,
But-
I think we should.
So this is not bad, this is great.
Yeah.
What happens is though, you have the discretion as a council to say, you know what, of this list, I know everybody said all these things to us, but so we've got this for the community, as a council, we think A, B, and C are the board about. You're gonna hear a lot more things than you can't tell all, you can't, board won't go anywhere. But you define what is the kind of like sore points, what is the, you can see change happening and you put to the board to make some thoughts about. So I think that's where the gathering comes from. Because the filter, we run the filter. We gather it in and we look at it and the committee, the council rep says, okay, here's what we're looking at. I heard today a lot about, uneven implementation in school, culture. I heard about, field trip coordinator possibly coming up. So I heard that you were saying things in this list that you can take action on right now. So you suggest to the board, hey board, look at possibly getting a volunteer or a hired field trip coordinator. They'll have an invitation. You know, hey board, can we hear more about, kitchen talent programs? I heard this, and I know this. So this is not for naught. We just have to know that that's gonna be our flow. We get a lot of stuff in, and we filter it down, and like, okay, here's what we can make ground on. And sometimes, I don't know if we want to do this, we can present to the community. Because we hear a lot about, maybe we have somebody come present to us, and then say, hey, here's what we heard about this topic we're concerned about. Maybe if there's a move where they get more information about it, they go, oh, it's happening, I didn't know it's happening, and they can find that out. So it's kind of like this before a push and pull. So we get feedback, we also give feedback back to the community. We give information as well, as taking information from them to the people. So it's kind of like, get our kinks out, get our wheels going.
Yeah, anybody else have?
I was gonna say, does anyone else bring back feedback? Because I've been writing down the ones that match.
Yeah.
And I think you've been typing down the ones that kind of line up. So did anyone else bring back feedback that we can
Oh, yeah.
narrow it down?
Because this was actually the focus that I was hoping that this committee was gonna take.
Okay.
So I've been doing this since May, when I got in. I'm like, I'm in. And then I came and I was like, that is not what I thought I was signing up for. So I'm super excited about our direction. So I have been to 4 of our 5 PTA meetings. I missed one tonight because I'm here. But that's the one I'm at all the time. And we actually had a Walkersville community-wide food truck event yesterday. So I got to talk to people from all of our feeder schools. So that was awesome. And there are a lot of people that I don't know. A lot of people know me that I don't know. So it worked out great. Some of the stuff that we talk about is the same. We talked about equity a lot in terms of the positive things that go on in some of our schools. Some of our schools are great at recognizing kids for not just academics, but other things. We used to do a lot of character counts and character recognition when my kids were younger. And then those schools got away with that, like, oh, we're not PBIS, we don't have to do this. And we're like, well, when you skip positivity, so we've gone away from that a lot. One big issue at their middle school is discipline. Our high school is not happy with our middle school because we send feral ninth graders to our high school. I have a ninth grader this year. He's in the band, he's not feral, he stays over there. But there's a big, I know our principal very well at the high school, and she was like, what is happening? I'm like, I know, and it was the same last year. The middle school is tough, as we know, middle school age kids are tough. I feel like our middle school is doing better this year because we have an additional AP, which has been amazing. There's a lot more grown-up presence on the ground in the mornings, which has made a big difference. And they're adding that positivity in, but the discipline is tough. And I hear that from parents, I hear it from students, and definitely my staff. And I say my staff because that's my PTA staff, is what I do. So they're all struggling with the discipline. There's hoods, there's phones, there's fights. They're sending people to the counselors for disciplinary issues, which not just to deprocess, but handle this fight, because it's a lot. So we are struggling with that. A big thing across the board from high school to elementary school in Walkersville is the increased need that our kids have for food
citizenship, and digital safety, and I think that goes hand in hand like nothing I've ever thought in my life before, with discipline, safety, behavior, mental health, all the things. So I would strongly advocate that digital citizenship in general, it's all the same, online, off. If you're a good citizen, if you're honest, if you're fair, if you're courageous, those go together, online and off. And I think that's something that our kids aren't the same as kids 10 years ago in late elementary school and middle school, and that's the time. Middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, every grade should be learning, just like they learn knife skills in the kitchen, be learning digital citizenship skills. It would be great if the parents would teach it at home, but we can't always rely on everything at home. We can't rely on kids having enough to eat. We can't rely on kids being, taught some of the sex ed type stuff at home. So this is my number one general 10,000 foot that I think covers a lot of things along the same lines of the autonomy versus prescriptiveness for the principals, covering a big hat.
And I think that can fall under mental health, but it can also fall under equity and consistency versus autonomy, because I think some schools are doing that, and I think other schools are not as much. So I think that there's a lot of things that could fall under that. So
Yeah, and then my last item, field trips was also reiterated from me, and the substitute teachers have been a disappointment. I've heard a lot of negativity about substitutes being, I'll summarize because you don't need to hear the stories I've heard, but there's immaturity. There's sometimes I'm gonna just go with immaturity as an overall, just some of the things, the ways they handle things, it wouldn't be approved. So.
I was just wondering for next steps, so we're not here all night, but if we should almost survey ourselves of do a survey with all the themes, the giant buckets, and then pick, everybody can pick their top 3, and then we can drill down in the next meeting.
Well, and then along with the next steps, because I think we had talked about at the last meeting, sending out minutes of our discussion to make sure, and I know I didn't see it, so I don't know if it just didn't go out, but I think that'll be an important thing for this meeting. I think that's how we're gonna get more people back in here.
So, the minutes were put into, Word docs, but they weren't sent out. So I'm doing today's minutes, and what you just mentioned just now is kind of what I'm thinking as well, I'm hearing the safety came up more than once, Fisher came up more than once. One thing that came up, spoke out to me, you guys mentioned about, the snow day that came out. One thing I thought about, I mentioned before from the board about quick feedback, about, timely feedback. One thing we need to improve on, that's something like on my heart and Mr. Johnson's heart, and I'm sure, the county's heart, is that communication. And so I think one thing I want to suggest to the council is that, Marco, we could look into a really quick form, 3 questions, that we could have sent to the council when we send out big information, like about virtual snow day, or about we're changing the calendar, or about there's this new free program. And the mundane, the common stuff, like the real big ticket item, what's gonna make the website doing the gallery slides, one of those that we send out to the council, and the council gets questions like, did you understand this? What did you think about this? What do you think is happening in this promotion? And if they hear back, well, it sounds like we're gonna be back to COVID again. And it's like, oh, well, that's not what we're trying to say. So I think that would be helpful, for the system to know, because a lot of times we'll get that eventually. And people say, no, the things you know last week, I didn't understand, man, that's it. But if we send it out, we send it to them. So maybe within a day and a half, we should update it and fix it. So that we can do quick feedback. That's gonna be helpful, because that's what they want to fix is communication.
Yes.
So you guys be a focus group of communication would be a huge help off the break. I can tell you right now. Sorry, little stuff here. But I agree with what you said before, pulling things down. Some of these audience things are really, really big. These are CPR for all staff, that makes sense to me. That makes sense to me. Because you guard the kids, you have to take care of them, if you're around a kid that's choking, you should be able to do something about that. This is a good thing. I don't know if we have to give grants for that, but that's something we can do. So I like the idea of pulling these all out in minutes. And so what I can do, is I can pull all these into minutes. I will send them out. If you want to add to it, you can add to it. Or actually, do you have what you have electronically already? I can save you some time. Everybody, you have the electronically just now? You have the electronically? What you mentioned just now, do you have it electronically? Your notes?
Oh, no, that was off the top of my head.
Oh, okay, well, I wrote them down. So I'll write them up, and if I know what I have is not what you have.
I don't know, I know you were typing
Yeah,
up,
I
you were
got it.
typing up things.
Sure.
and
I
stuff.
had it
was just
sent to
saying,
Okay.
taking the
Great.
huge list of things
problem.
and then sending it out as a survey monkey to the group, to then pick the top 3 things that we would be working on.
Yeah, so-
Or more,
Unless you
right?
wanna do that right
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
with the group that was kind of part of this discussion based on and then, because I think that,
Do some
so
next
move forward,
time.
yeah, because then we can communicate with the next group.
In the interest of time,
Right.
I think it's gonna be better if we do this after.
Okay.
So I think next month we did the list, and again, I think we all should look at it, send it to me, I'll
Sure.
send it over, now look at it, add everything on there. Sorry, I'm moving, so go through, and then, have those things that you really are happy about in your heart. You can pull out the whiteboard here, and we can just put them on the board, and you can just write them down, we'll call them out, and we can discuss what's red light, what's green light, what's yellow light. I think we didn't get you that just yet. Well, our first focus will be these 3. You all agree, we will look at. Make suggestions, give to the board, and hopefully the board with some action on those things. So I think that'll be something to look at. And Dr. Marcos, are we still in agreement for Dr. Marco to call for Dr. Reinhardt for Houston Talented?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we wanna wait until we got a list of things.
Yeah.
we're
All
gonna-
right.
That other way.
The word is no.
Yeah.
I think if we choose that consistency versus autonomy, there's a lot of pieces that fall under it, like field trips and enrichment and,
And then we have to drill down.
right.
And then it would be, yeah.
So for next time, we're looking forward to seeing a discussion about our topics and drill down those, and then also hearing back about marketing logo. Sounds great. All hearts are clear. We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.